Good evening, friends. Thank you for joining us on this hot Tuesday evening for a conversation about the underserved or impacted communities within the county. Equal opportunity is the expectation that we all have as American citizens. But for too many, for far too long, many Americans have been denied access and equity to those opportunities available to others. Sussex County's underserved communities are not visible. As a matter of fact, for many of us who moved into Sussex County during the past 20 years, we may have assumed that there were no underserved communities. Several of the originally identified underserved communities were either victims to the plan for the regentrification of our county, a national strategy to deal with undesirable, I'm quoting, not my opinion, unattractive and non-profitable communities, or in the process of shrinkage. In the urban cities where many of us came from, these communities were called ghettos, the neglected, deemed dangerous by some fear-mongering folks, and seemingly beyond salvaging because of the presence of the chronic social malaise, poverty, unemployment, poor health care, poor education systems, and no opportunities for economic advancement. Our Sussex County underserved communities present a similar picture. Just a reminder to all of us that these communities are a part of the larger Sussex County community. Despite their invisibility or our intentional dismissal of them, they are our neighbors and deserve our attention. If every member of an underserved community was afforded equity in response to their needs, they would be more than our neighbors. They would be our allies. Those relationships that we need as we continue to build a strong, healthy community for everyone. Tonight, we will meet the leaders of 3 of these underserved communities, and another panelist, Mr. Bruce Wright, who has worked as an advocate for the residents of these communities. Allow me to introduce our moderator for the night and the man who has planned this panel discussion, Don Peterson. And before I forget, always a thanks to Calvin Jackson, who allows us to have these very exciting town hall meetings. Don, it's all yours.
Thank you, Charlotte. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, we're really going to get local. We're going to explore an aspect of Sussex County that is rarely discussed and perhaps too little known. That is the so-called underserved communities in Sussex County, Charlotte mentioned. While these communities are not exclusively Black communities, many of them are. As we crisscross the county going back and forth about our daily work, we may be driving right by some of these communities and not even know that they're there. As we're going to discover tonight, these communities have faced major challenges for decades, often with little attention from elected leaders. And yet, they are vibrant communities with strong leaders who fight every day to make their communities better. Our hope is that what you learned tonight will resonate with you, perhaps give you an idea of how you or an organization to which you belong might get involved in supporting this community. I want to mention that we will have time for Q&A after the presentation. And so if you have questions, please make sure that you type them either into the chat or into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. As Charlotte mentioned, tonight we're going to be looking at 3 communities: West Rehoboth, Coverdale Crossroads, and the outskirts of Ellendale around New Hope and Old State Roads. In a few minutes, I will introduce those communities' leaders to you. But first, we've asked Bruce Wright to provide us with an overview of the underserved communities of Sussex County and the strong community initiative that is designed to provide them with support. Bruce is the program manager for the First State Community Action Agency Community Development Programs. He's been with First State since 1994, working in more than 18 communities in Sussex County and on the Strong Communities Initiative since it was started by then Governor Tom Carper. Bruce, thanks a lot for being with us tonight. We're going to turn it over to you now.
Thanks, Don. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone for allowing First State to be a part of this, especially our Executive Director, Bernice Edwards, for allowing me to be a part. I want to show a video to set the stage of poverty in low-income communities and share some pictures with you at first, and then go through a brief presentation. So give me 1 second.
Photographers Horace Bristol and Dorothea Lang famously documented the plight of migrant farm workers struggling to survive the Dust Bowl days of the Great Depression.
Sick of red, itchy mosquito bites?
What?
This genius college student just solved a 210 million-year-old.
Images that informed John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. Tonight, Jim Axelrod has the story of a modern-day photographer opening America's eyes to another epic struggle for survival. I should picture the doorway.
Steve Liss is a master photographer. You don't take 43 Time magazine covers without knowing how to handle a camera. But his latest subjects are a group that's moved out of the spotlight, the 50 million Americans who live in poverty.
What wasn't photographing presidents giving you that you needed to go searching out this?
I think a sense of making a real contribution, a sense of being able to make the world a better place.
3 years ago, Liss, who teaches photography at Columbia College Chicago, founded a project called In Our Own Backyard. He's recruiting photographers to travel the country and make the invisible visible.
When you take a look at a trailer like this, what goes through your mind?
Wonder what it must be like to live there. Wonder what it must be like to raise your children there.
We caught up with Liss in Athens County, Ohio, the state's poorest, where 1 in 4 people lives in poverty.
I can recite statistics to you all you want, but when I do that, people's eyes glaze over. But I tell a story of one family and one family's struggle with poverty. And if I tell it in a compelling way, then they're engaged.
On this day, the one family is Shirley Forriders. She lives in a rickety trailer with her son Dalton, daughter Michaela, and her boyfriend on $450 a month from welfare and $500 a month in food stamps.
You don't feel like you've been seeing all that much in your life, do you?
No. I feel like I've just been sucked away, and the closet door's just been shut on me, if you know what I mean.
What's it been like to have him here taking pictures of you?
It has been wonderful. He is treating my family like a human being.
And what I showed you?
What's that?
Finding dignity amid poverty's grinding despair follows in the long tradition of photographers like Dorothea Lang, who captured the humanity of those ravaged by the Great Depression.
I never met Dorothea Lang. She passed away before I was even in the profession, but I'd like to think that she'd be proud of us and proud of the contribution we're making.
The contribution of taking what's hard to face and compelling people to look at it.
I want poverty to have a place at the table that it doesn't presently have, that it hasn't had for 40 years.
Because as Steve Liss understands it, you can't fix what you can't see. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, Coolsville, Ohio.
I realize that's not Delaware, but it captures the sense of what Don was explaining about not being able to see the communities and the people that are in poverty. Sorry. Get this under control. So again, we all have our traditional views of what poverty looks like. We've all been to urban settings, we've been in cities, and we see homeless people. We see people that are sitting on the streets that have nowhere to go. Poverty in Delaware, especially Sussex County, rural areas, it looks a little bit different. You know, we see homes that we ride by, like this one that we don't believe are occupied. We can't believe that someone might live there, but people do. We see a lot of, especially trends in the new millennium, of people that live full-time in campers. Obviously, you can look in the background of this young man playing in the dirt, and you can see that they're not what we consider permanent homes. They're trailers and mobile homes and campers. This is one picture in rural Delaware of a camper that is pulled in. It doesn't look like that now. It has steps to it, and it's a permanent housing site for a family. As Don mentioned, I work for First State Community Action Agency. First State is the designated anti-poverty agency for Delaware. I work in the Community Development Department, and we have a strong communities initiative. The history of First State was founded in 1965. In 1993, we became a statewide recognized anti-poverty agency for the entire state of Delaware. Our mission is to work towards the elimination of poverty and lessen the effects of poverty on people with low incomes. Part of how we do that is by being a member organization of more than 1,000 community action agencies throughout the state of Delaware. We're afforded tools, as you see with the lovely arrow here, that starts in crisis and moves to self-sufficiency. We're given tools to measure a person and a community's level of capacity to see if they're in crisis or they're vulnerable, and how we can get them to stable, thriving, and self-sufficient. What we do at First State, we provide more than 20 programs to look at the whole family to help make communities healthy and equip them with the knowledge and tools to move up the scale that was aforementioned. In community development, we focus on capacity building and human capital, helping communities to organize, to build their capacity, to develop leadership from within the community of the residents that have the community in their best interest, providing technical assistance, and both helping them to advocate, helping partners to advocate toward the cause and the things that are important within that community. As Don mentioned, in 1994, Governor Carper's Strong Community Initiative began. It started with 8 communities. It started with Coverdale Crossroads, West Rehoboth, Ellendale, The Hole, Martin Swamp, Shockley Town, Pepper Ridge, Lazy Lagoon, and Polly Branch. I want you to pay attention to the names of those communities and think about how it can affect some of the lives of young people and adults when they have to go to school, they go to work, and where do you live? I live in the hole, I live in the swamp, I live in a lagoon. Those aren't very complimentary names. One of the first things that the Strong Communities Initiative did is it went in, it spoke to community residents, and it helped identify the history of their community. The community of Ellendale, as Don actually mentioned, is now called New Hope. Now those residents live on New Hope Road. Martin Swamp had a history with a gentleman by the name of Sam Lucas. It's now called Lucas Development, and the community resides on Sam Lucas Road. Lazy Lagoon, which is actually a mobile home park, is now called Enchanted Meadows Mobile Home Park. It's a lot more positive than the names where the community originated when we started the initiative. Other identified communities within Sussex County include Pinetown, Walker's Mill, Diamond Acres, Delmarva Church Camp, Slaughter Neck, Pine Haven Mobile Home Park, Cool Springs, Jimtown, Green Top. There's an entire area around Kings Market in the Lincoln area, Possum Point in Millsboro, and Clogs Drive in Dagsboro. One of the things that stands out to me is I just named 19 communities, some of which I've only found in the last 2 years of my 27-year career at First State, some of which I've been working with for long periods of time. The one thing that's really prevalent when you look at Pine Haven being a mobile home park was actually set up as a campground. It was never intended to be year-round, full-time living for residents. Like many people in the new millennium, housing has become a real strong issue, real difficult situations, causing people to live in various situations. I just want to target one of the communities, again, that wasn't ever meant for full-time living. This is Delmarva Church Camp. It's in the community of Laurel, Delaware. It's just outside of Incorporated Laurel. It was designed to be a revival camp or a place for religious retreats. People from New York, Maryland, Pennsylvania would come, they would spend 2 weeks and have a revival, and they would all return home. What they have built there are called tents. When they were originally built, they did not have indoor plumbing, they didn't have heat, they weren't insulated, they were less than 1,000 square feet, they're probably actually less than 800 square feet. And if you look at the next slide, and you take a close look at one of the groupings of those homes, they're built right next to each other. This is a community that we've worked in for the last 10 years. People permanently live there. Some of the homes have been upgraded with water and sewer and indoor plumbing. Some of them haven't. But it really captures some of the living conditions that we ride through every day throughout the county. If I can go back, when you look at this community, you see all the tree lines that surround it. It's very easy to ride by the forgotten parts of our county, and you don't even realize entire communities exist. Just to give an overview of Delaware, and again, First State being the anti-poverty agency, we focus on people with low incomes, families with low incomes. There are 106,383 Delawareans, or 11.3% of residents live in poverty. 16% of our children live in poverty, 13% of our working age women, and 8.4% of our working age men. There's 17.3% are African Americans, 10% are Asian Americans, 22 Latino, and 7.5 white Americans. Poverty is obviously one of the largest contributors to the poor housing and the conditions of the low-income communities or pockets of poverty that we deal with, and that we'll talk about this evening. So just keep in mind that there are more than 19 communities that we just talked about, and there are more that we discover every day. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Bruce. Appreciate that introduction. It's interesting to me that to learn that you're still discovering new communities who are in need. It just highlights, I think, the desperation of some of these communities. So now I would like to introduce to you, let me first ask, Brenda Milbourne, are you with us tonight? If you're on mute, Brenda, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
Brenda.
Hello.
Hi, Brenda. Good to see you. I'm glad you're with us. Just wanted to make sure. So now what I'd like to do is introduce to you some community leaders that we have invited to talk about their communities tonight. Right now, Loretta Benson, we're trying to reach her. She hasn't joined us just yet. We're going to continue to try to reach her, and when she gets here, I'll introduce Loretta. But I want to make sure that you meet Brenda Milbourne. She is from West Rehoboth. Brenda is known to many in the community as Miss B. She was raised in West Rehoboth, where she remains committed to improving the lives of low income, at risk, disadvantaged, marginalized children, youth, and families. Brenda is one of the co-founders and is the executive director of the West Rehoboth Children and Youth Program. And finally, we have Ms. Evelyn Wilson from Coverdale Crossroads, which is near Bridgeville. Evelyn was born and raised in Greenwood, Delaware, and moved to Coverdale Crossroads in 1971. Evelyn, that was 50 years ago. That's pretty remarkable. She has invested countless volunteer hours serving on the Coverdale Crossroads Community Council Incorporated, and is the founder and president of Just a Hand Up Community Navigation Association. I really like that name for the association. So to begin with tonight, what I'd like to do is ask both of you, excuse me, is ask both of you to just give us a brief history of your community, how it came together, and just a little bit about its past. Brenda, why don't we start with you?
Thank you and good evening. Our community, through records of Mrs. Blackwell, our community is a historical community, and the land was given to African Americans in 1837. And how it was found, each lot is 50 by 175 foot. The lots were owned by African American residents. A Quaker named Mr. Charlie Mills named each street by his workers that worked in a cannery. Mr. Mills came to Delaware in the World War II, and he started a cannery for the farmers that came very successful. The first residents that worked for Mr. Mills, he decided that he would give them their land at 50 feet by 175. The men and women that worked at the cannery, this is what he did for them. Some of them worked in restaurants, some worked in hotels, and they worked in hotels at the resort town of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Some men and women who were unfortunate that they could not eat in the restaurants and they could not shop in the restaurant at Rehoboth Beach. So this is the reason why Mr. Charlie Mills gave them their land, so that they would be able to grow their crops, to have their own stores, to have their own beautician, and even have their own little speakeasies and nightclubs. And this is how the community started, with growing tomatoes, and they had pigs and their own meat. So they really did not know that they were poor, because everything that they needed was in their community. And they realized that, with segregation, that when the work was done on the beach, they came home to their own homes. So, but I would like to say today that we work with the Community Land Trust. We work with Habitat, who is working in our community to help us to get affordable houses. The population here in 1968 was about 300 people. In 1994, it was about 250, and it began to decline. Now we have 125 persons today. When we look at the overall of our community, what has happened? What has happened in our community? The community.
Brenda, let me stop you there and just ask you a question about the Community Land Trust. You mentioned that. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, the Community Land Trust is made up working with Habitat. What they come in to do, they purchase the land, and then they partnership with Habitat, and they build a home for people to live in that is affordable. So once they build the home, you have to volunteer your credit. They look at your credit and also the credit hours that you get for someone to help you build your home. So sometimes if you have a lot of credit, you're able to get a free refrigerator, you're able to get a free stove. But the most important thing is you never own the land. That's why it's called the land trust. Now, what happens is it goes down to generation after generation. Say the person that owned the house, they should die, it would go to the next sibling. So this is helping us to grow our own, to keep our own people in our own community so that they do not lose the home.
Right. Great. Thanks, Brenda. I want to get into later some of the challenges that you face, but before we do that, let's turn to Miss Wilson, Evelyn, and give us a little bit of a history of Coverdale. From the information that you sent me, I was surprised how far back Coverdale goes.
Well, the history of Coverdale goes back to the 1800s, and the original name was Bethel Crossroads. They changed the past waters, Collins. Then it went back to Coverdale. Then it changed to Laverty. Then the original name is Coverdale. And it established and it used to have a polling place in 1811. They called it House of Boaz Coverdale. And in the past waters and Bethel Crossroads was designated as the voting place of Nanco Acres. Now this gave the place the first importance. In 1816, Samuel Stevens opened a tavern. Then Priscilla Coverdale opened a tavern and continued to keep it to 1818. So then there were two taverns. In the year of 1833, Nathaniel Short had a store there. In 1858, Isaac M. Fire and C.A. Rawlin, who was in the old store building from 1852 to 1852, also had the place made they had a post office. There's in January, that was 1857, and remained until 1862, when he retired from business. And in 1869, the old Coverdale Tavern was closed. Among its proprietors were Joseph Solomon, Joseph Carpenter, and Miles Tyndall. Jonathan Hill was the last proprietor. So, and now, in today, Coverdale Crossroads has 4 churches, 4 daycare businesses, and we have our Coverdale Child Development Center. We call our community center.
Right.
Where we hold community events for youth and adults programs. And in 2009, we had 3 homes built through partnership, and another home built later. And the Coverdale Crossroads Community Council, what is the heartbeat of Coverdale Crossroads, was established in 1979 by residents of our community. They did a very good job forming this organization. And this is a popular organization. I know, but I will tell you more about later some of the things that was done. Right now, we're working on it.
Great.
Coverdale Crossroads Council will be back. We'll be back. So.
That's great to hear, and I don't doubt it for a minute. Evelyn, are you aware whether or not Coverdale Crossroads has always been a community of African Americans, or did that evolve over time?
It evolved over time.
Did it?
Because and I moved here in 71, and during that time, that's when John Evans was selling property to different residents, you could either buy the property or he moved in houses on the property. And most of the lots are 100 by 160.
Okay.
And a lot of the houses came in from Seaford because they were cutting a road in Seaford. So they had, and those were the houses that were moved to Coverdale.
Right.
And most of the people in Coverdale own their property.
Mhm.
So,
Great, great, good. Well, thank you. Long histories in both communities, really remarkable. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that your community has faced over the past several decades? I know there's been struggles for several decades, but the ones that you're familiar with. Brenda, let's start with you. What are some of the challenges that you've faced, and how have you been able to meet those challenges?
Thank you. Good question. Some of the challenge that we have faced has been drugs. It has been credit, education, a lack of education in our community, transportation, assisting with health issues, teenage pregnancy, mental health issues, homeless, and squatters has been one of our problems.
Mhm.
So when I came on board, when I seen what was going on, again, anything that's in a low income community, you have to step out and partnership because that helps to bring your community up some. So I began to partnership with Troop 7.
Mm.
I partnership with Epworth Church to help our folks to get their GED. Then I brought in some health people. And then the most important thing, we had to have a massive raid in our community. And when we had that raid, there was helicopters that dropped down and had a big drug bust that some of the children realized that their parents, their mothers, their sisters, the brothers, we also had to seize a home and remove that family out of our community. Because first of all, if you got to clean up before we can make a change in any community. And along with my team, we stood tall to say we were taking back our community. So those are some of the issues that we have right now, mental health, trying to recover credit. With this epidemic, it did not help us at all because of the children not going to school. Um, I bought some of them in to help them with their lessons. But then when your parents are uneducated, it's hard for you to talk to the parents about what we need to do. Again, our partnership with the school board members, Mr. Collins, to come in and help me and my team to help these children to get back focused. Here at Westside New Beginnings Building, we are connected with the school. The kids come in with their number and so they can get on because we do have internet. So as I say again, there are still challenges in our community that we're still facing. And one of the most important challenge and hopefulest thing is housing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to hear about the story of partnering with Troop 7 and recognizing the drug problems that you had and realizing it was going to take it sounds like some pretty drastic action. Have you seen a decrease in the drug activity in the community since then?
Most definitely, it has decreased very much. I can tell you it's decreased because when you come in West Rehoboth, you see these, I would say $1 million homes in our community now. And one thing that I would like to say that I think what really hurts West Rehoboth is when we say we live in West Rehoboth, they look at the zip code 19971. That's on the other side of the bridge. We were well hidden for a long time. And then finally, someone found that we were just a minute away from the beach.
Right.
So it's very hard for us to get help and partnership because the first thing they say, oh, you live in Rehoboth Beach, but we don't live in Rehoboth Beach. That zip code has put a damper on our community, 19971.
Yeah, you were telling me a little bit about the relationship between the Tanger Miles and West Rehoboth. Can you say a little bit about that?
Of course I can. That was another good question. West Rehoboth just do not start at where I live at. West Rehoboth starts in Pinetown and it goes all the way to Dewey Beach. A lot of people don't want to say that they live in West Rehoboth, but they live in West Rehoboth. And when we were trying to get water through First State Community Action, they came in, and because of lack of education, our people didn't understand. But there would not be a Tangier outlet because they needed sewage water also, too. So in order for the state and the government, they would say, well, we're going to give them a lower price. So they were able to hook into the water system like we were. But in our community, everyone did not hook up. Why? Because of lack of education. And First State came in to explain to them when Miss Minnie Smith, who has been and was a leader, she was a pioneer in our community. She is 90 some years old now, and she's not able to do the things that she used to do. But Miss Minnie held on along with her team. But I say this, that West Rehoboth again got the short end of the deal because Tangier Outlet also needed that community, which was our community, to have that pipeline of water to come through.
Yeah, yeah. One other, Bruce, yes, I see you want to add something.
Well, I just wanted to say, I was listening to Brenda and Miss Evelyn, and Brenda, to you, I can remember when I started working at First State, there was only one way in West Rehoboth and one way out. And, you know, we watched the transition in the houses. That's not necessarily the case now. And then the other thing from both ladies is I also know from working in those communities that there are rich histories and there are families that have lived in those communities for generations. I'd like to hear more about that because some of those people could have chose to move away, but they didn't. You have long-standing roots in those communities.
Yeah, let's turn to Evelyn to respond to Bruce's question. It's a great question.
Well, I'm glad he asked that question because those people who live here, they live a long time. We just had one lady just passed away, 101 year old. And one of the ladies that was on that board that to form the Coverdale Cross Community Council, Miss Jones is still living. She's in her 90s. She still goes which she wants. Well, we're long livers, longevity in Coverdale Crossroads. So it must be harder, I guess. And then their mind, nothing wrong with their mind. They can still tell you. They can really give you the history. They can tell you the history.
Right. Yeah. And is it the same in Coverdale as it is in West Rehoboth, where property is turned down from generation to generation?
Yes, and that's some of this. One of the things, there's a lot of arid property, nice property just sitting there that the homes could be built on, but you got to go through a channel in order to get the property in shape so you can use it to build a house on.
Right.
Just on my street, it's five properties. The homes could be built on.
Yeah, five properties that are.
But they're arid property, and no one does anything with them. They're just there. Like,
Yeah.
let them go.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Let them go sell it or do something.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, I would just let it go. Let it be utilized. You know, if somebody build a home on it, and then it grows up, it makes the community look bad.
Of course, of course. Having those vacant lots is never a good thing.
And people hide in the lots, and that's where they congregate for other stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
far as the drugs, some things are similar. The drugs, and when we do cleanups, have to do a lot of cleanups, and the stigma of our communities, a lot of our kids, and some adults. You ask them where they're from. I'm from Bridgeville. They will not mention they're from Coverdale. But I tell everybody, I am from Coverdale Crossroads, and I'm proud of it. And they rattle on. I said, well, can you help us do such and such? You bring it to me. Bring it to me. Help me to change this.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they either put up or shut up. And most of the time, they'll help. They will help. Because they see how I feel about my community. I mean, you don't talk about my community like that.
Right.
You help me to build up my community. And normally, if you talk them the right way, they will change their mind quick. and they'll offer you something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh well, they will.
You know, I was mentioning last night when we were talking that I had seen a short video about Coverdale. Talk to us a little bit about some of the transportation challenges that you have in Coverdale.
Now, first of all, but the transportation. Now, a few years ago when I was on the board, I attended several meetings at Del Tech in reference to transportation. Oh, we finally got the transportation passed. They put the stops in Coverdale. We had one at the Bishop Foreman's church. Had one was on Nat Turner Street. I think had by 3 stops. And because no one utilized it, they took it out.
Ah.
So now the only place they have now is right on 18, which is really dangerous. They were here, but no one utilized it. They took them out.
Yeah.
Had a nice glass pavilion, really nice.
Oh wow.
They took it down, moved it.
Mm-hmm. And so now if you don't have a vehicle, you have to walk about a mile to the bus stop, cross 18.
To 18 to get the ride.
Yeah. That's got to make it tough for a lot of your residents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most of them have cars, and they seem to manage. That we say it's a way of life. They manage.
Sure, of course, yeah. I'm interested in, we talked a little bit about the history of your communities. I'm really interested in hearing some of the success stories that you've had in your communities. Brenda, I know you've had several. I've known you for a while, and I know some of the amazing success stories that you've had. Why don't you tell us a little bit about them?
Thank you. I'm Bruce, and I'll come back to your questions. When we first started, I cleaned up Mr. Doc Goods and Mr. Dutch Kelly and Mr. I can't think of his name. But anyhow, we first, after we had our drug bust, there was one thing that you must do in any community. You must learn to partnership. So what we did, we went to the prison and we asked the work release people would come in and help us clean our community up. And all the work release people wanted was a hot meal and a Pepsi Cola. And so they allowed us to do that. And then we went to partnership with Mr. Donovan to ask him to move out cars for us. So I think that was one of our first beginning of our change in our community, that we went forward and began to partnership with outside entities to begin to help us and to see that we were serious about saving our community, because our community is what our parents, it's what Mr. Allen, who had lots of land here in West Rehoboth. As Bruce said, it was one way in because Mr. Allen owned that land. And again, when children do not take care, and I'm going back again to education, when you don't know the know-how and what is happening to your property because of siblings don't want to come together. So Mr. Allen lost land in West Rehoboth. He lost land by on the other side of the town. He lost land in Jimtown. He was one of the powerful men that had land because when the migrant people from Florida would come here, they would stay at the Elephant Hotel and work on the beach at different restaurants. But I would just like to tell you a story in 1968. My mother also worked on the beach. She worked at a restaurant called Robin Hood. When these gentlemen had left the Happy Day Club in Lewis and they went downtown to eat breakfast because this restaurant was open 24/7, and they walked in the front door to sit down, and then the people of the other color said, you can't do this, you can't come in and sit down. But they didn't understand because they were from Lake Wells, Florida. They had never experienced what we had experienced. So it was on a Saturday night and they said they weren't leaving anywhere. So this was our first ride in downtown of Rehoboth because they had to call the National Guards, and we were sitting in church that Sunday morning and our pastor got a note said that the National Guards are in downtown Rehoboth because there's a ride. Black folks won't leave the restaurant. And I think that was one of our first beginnings to learn that we had a voice and that it wasn't about the color of our skin, that we were who we were and our parents, and they have come here to work, and why we couldn't be a part of what was going on in downtown of Rehoboth. So I remember that so dearly. In 1968, we integrated as children to go to a white school that we did not want to go to, and we were not accepted at that time. But I will say there was two teachers, Mrs. Jaglam and Mrs. Nokowski, because the teachers would say, we didn't want you niggers here. They would throw water on us. They did a lot of things. But today I would like to tell you, some of those same people are sticking by me. They're lawyers and they're working with me. That was a good accomplishment. And my other accomplishment that I would like to talk about, that I started a summer program for the children. At that time, I had 50 children. Because not only did we have a program, but I knew that I was taking care of the children so that the parents could go on the beach to work. I mean, we had kids that didn't even know what a fork and a spoon was. They was climbing over the tables. So then we began to teach them, to nurture them. And some of these same children have gone on to college. I can think of one lady now that has won 5 awards at the BET. She writes music for Diddley. She writes music for Beyonce and her husband. And she has come back and she has given back to our community. And then we have some fallen soldiers, some of my children that have come through the community that are gone. And I would like to tell you that people stepped in when several kids wanted to go to college and kids couldn't go to college, but they stepped in unanonymous and helped to send these kids to school. And right today, some of these same kids have gone back to Cape and Lopin High School now and are working at Cape and Lopin High School. I can't tell you that every child is on the honor roll, but they are successful and working together. Again, partnership. That's the key word. We must learn how to step out of our box, get into partnership with each other. But when it comes to housing, we're still below that line.
Mhm. Yeah.
In order for you to get a habitat house, you got to have your credit in order. And our people don't understand about credit. And this is why I say this building is a safe haven that we should have people coming here, working with us. We do have dumpsters now, so that's a big help. Everybody in our community have dumpster. We partnership with a dumpster company, and they gave us a nice break so that they can pick up the trash here. So that helps our community not to have trash. We partnership again and with the county so that we can have lights on our streets. So again, you have to step out of that corner and say, this is what we gonna do together. It's gotta be a us. It's gotta be a we. It
Yeah.
never can be a our.
Right.
But the thing that I'm concerned about moving forward is the bicycles. I am just so upset. I'm so afraid that someone is going to get killed because four-wheelers and automobiles don't realize that they're gonna kill one of these people. I'm up every morning at 6 o'clock just watching what is happening, and we need to do something about it. Either put speed bumps, just like I had to go to the school when they wouldn't come here and drop my children off and drop them out there on Hebron Road. That was waiting for a child to get killed day after, night after, taking pictures. Pictures tell the story about your community.
Right. Brenda, before
Said,
I'm sorry, before we move to Evelyn to talk about Coverdale, you mentioned this building, but you haven't described what this building is that you're in. Talk a little bit about that.
this this building is Westside New Beginnings Community Center. It's my hope. It's my future. It's where the children come after school, before school. We have after school programs. We take the children on trips. Right now, we are into our summer program. We partnership with Freeman Stage, and they will be going to Freeman Stage for 3 performance. Uh, our children didn't even know what a ferry was, so we're taking them to Cape May Ferry. We have different people come in to talk about health to them, exercise. This place is the foundation that will help us move forward in our community. And I always say it's an open book. Please come and visit. Uh, Joe Joe Biden's son was the most important person. He came every Thursday and he cooked for the children. And in January, we put up a display of Bo Biden, of all the work, all the cooking that he did here in this center. It's it I love West Rehoboth, but most of all, I love that I have a home, a safe place for children. Not only that, we do have a van that we're able to transport the children. And how did we get that van? It was the people that bought the van for the children. So now not only do I work with the children, I work with the whole community, the seniors, because the seniors are the ones years ago that worked for $1.25 to hold on to what they have. So now $1.25 work. So can you imagine what their social security check is? And then you tell them that their switch bill costs more than what their social security is. So what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to eat? Are they supposed to pay the water bill, the sewage bill? These are the kind of things. Why don't they have some kind of forgiveness? I will fight and I will continue to fight for the children and the seniors here in West Rehoboth.
I know you will, Brenda. I know you will. Evelyn, let's turn our attention for a bit to Coverdale, because there have been some really remarkable advancements that the community organization and the community members have been able to achieve. Can you talk to us a little bit about those?
Okay, first we'll start with the old. From 2004 to 2015, the Coverdale Crossing Community Center was open every day, 5 days a week, serving the community with the youth program, serving the seniors, had parties to come in to do all kind of workshops on credit. First Day came in. First Day Community Action Agency, the state, Sussex Health Coalition, all of our partners came in. Woodbridge School District, we established a partnership with Woodbridge School District. They attended one of our meetings. Our kids attend a Woodbridge School District, but they never attend any of our community meetings. So they decided to bring one of their parties and influence one of our meetings. So once they came to their meeting and met the people in Coverdale, they discovered we weren't as bad as they thought we were. So after that, we formed a partnership, and they put it in the paper. And after that, they provided us with the computer lab, gave us new furniture for our after school for our program, new cabinets, and anything that I needed, we had it. With Discover Bank, PNC Bank, the county, First Day. I'm going to do the First Day. I'm not going to get to with the training, and with all, and we even had BB. He said, "Well, BB, what can BB do?" First of all, BB had employees. Our kids had needs, so BB adopted 30 of our kids. We had 25 to 30 children every day. Adopted our kids. And every year, twice a year, they would provide something for our kids. It was a backpack full of school supplies, or they needed blankets, if they needed shoes, if they needed clothes. The nurses would come out and do a workshop with the kids. And in the meantime, when they were done, we would distribute all of the different things that they brought for us. And up until now, well, we're trying to get the Coverdale Cross Community Council up and running again. There's power in that little organization. All we need is education. We need to educate our community how to run that organization to get them going again.
Right.
Okay, and for now, well, we got our street lights. We work with Senator Pettyjohn, got our street lights, and Message Development, Sussex Housing Group. Don't forget them. And we have our light at the intersection. There was once a stop sign. We had a lot of accidents. And this particular day, there was one accident that involved one of our community members. And I called Senator Pettyjohn. I said, this has got to be changed immediately. And within a week, it was announced and it was changed.
Evelyn, you're cutting out a little bit. Is there something wrong with your speaker, perhaps?
Am I cutting out?
That's better, right?
No, I don't think so.
That's better.
Okay, better? Okay.
That's better. Maybe you have to
well, we gotta
lean a little closer. You gave us some pictures. Would you like to go through those pictures and describe what we're seeing? Let me share the screen. I'll share the screen, and we'll take a look at some of those pictures.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell us about this picture?
This picture here is all about partnership. You got to have partners. It's a partnership with Woodbridge School District. These are the students that came out to Coverdale when we had a mobile pantry. Coverdale was the first, the mobile pantry started in Sussex County at Coverdale Crossroads. And what during that time was you came and you actually shopped from the table. What they're doing now is entirely different. You get all kinds of stuff on the table, you shop for free. So we had the students from Woodbridge School District to come out and volunteer.
Yeah, and because I know that Coverdale is in a bit of a food desert, and it's sometimes hard to get to the grocery store. And so the food bank is coming into the neighborhood. Is that correct?
Yes, and during this time, we did a mobile pantry every month in Coverdale for a whole year, for 1 year. Then they started to branch out in other communities. But Coverdale was the first.
Good, good. Something that shows the power of partnership, right?
Right.
Let me show you the next picture. What's going on here?
Well, here, I was teaching here about nonprofit at First State Community Action Agency. So what happened was when I first started, they had funding for us to go and be trained. So I was in that group and I got all the training I could get. Then when that stopped, then Dell State University started paying for training for me. So I was able to come back and train the community. And this was the First State Community Action Agency's establishment.
Yep, I recognize.
And these are all that's all of the community people from all the communities.
All right. Was that the inspiration for you forming your own nonprofit?
Yes, one of them. Yeah, one of them. Yeah,
Right.
one of them. Yeah.
Good. Now the next two pictures are really interesting to me. First of all, what's going on here, and can you tell me about this building that you're in?
This is our community center. Coverdale Cross Community Center, log cabin, been there for years. And this is a workshop, an education workshop. This is Kanisha Trott during that time, and she was telling the community about the monastery school, educating, and we occasionally we had different workshops to educate our people, and they would come.
Sure.
And they were very attentive, and I think we did get some kids from our community that are attending the school.
Right, and there's one more picture.
Now this is our youth program back then. Now here, during this time, the teachers are not there, but we had teachers from Woodbridge School District that actually came out to teach our kids during our youth program, after school program. And we had an aide, he's all the way on the end. First he was hired by Coverdale Crossroads Community Council. And when he got his degree, it was kind of talking to Bruce, and Bruce hired so he could pay it. Then we took that money, which we're paying him, and we used that money to pay 2 of our teenagers in our community to give them a stipend so they could continue to work at the community center.
Right.
We also had a couple parents that worked there. They also got a stipend. We made sure, well, you said low income community. So we made sure that our low income residents received a stipend because they needed gas, they had children, they had needs.
Right.
So I knew what the needs were. So we made a way for them to work and get a stipend. So we always had at least 4 people working to receive the stipend. And these kids are the ones that kept the building clean. One cleaned the kitchen, one mopped the floor, one cleaned the bathroom, one washed the windows. So that was our routine.
That's good training.
And those tables and chairs were provided by Woodbridge School District. And the screen and all the other stuff was provided by the Criminal Justice Center. We received a grant from them. So we were there every day. Every day we were there, it was open. We want that again.
Great. Is that building still in use?
Bruce?
Is that building still in use?
Somewhat.
Yes.
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, somewhat.
Great. It's really interesting to see that log cabin as the community center for Coverdale. Yeah. Well, we are. I really appreciate Bruce. at this point, is there anything that you want to add, or we should come back to your question because I didn't let Brenda answer it. But I forget what the question was.
It was just about the strong heritage that the families within those communities have, and the longevity that you have families and other family members that live together in both West Rehoboth and Coverdale.
Yeah, they still live there.
Yes.
They don't want to leave. But I had one family that lives here, and they called me. They're the ones who want land so they can build a home because this is their home. They want to stay here, but they want to build a new house. So we need to have affordable housing in Coverdale again.
Yeah.
We need affordable housing.
Don, I just wanted to point out that I started working for Community Action in 1994. And the two communities I was assigned on my first day from Bernice Edwards were West Rehoboth and Coverdale Crossroads. And here we are 27 years from now. The communities are very similar. They've been through a lot of ups and downs in leadership. They've accomplished great things, but it's the need for ongoing technical assistance and partnership,
Right.
Not just with agencies like First State, but with a lot of other agencies. And especially on the eastern side of the county and really throughout Sussex County, we have a lot of retirees with a lot of talents. And one of the things that Brenda mentioned, Miss Minnie Smith, one of the things that she taught me, her and Ellen Smith was from downtown Rehoboth. Minnie Smith was from West Rehoboth. They were two ladies who managed to get great things done. They worked together. They shared ideas. One of my visions in all these years and looking back at what they were able to accomplish was to get a core group of volunteers, not people who wanted to come into communities and do the work for people, but people who had skills and previous lives and professions that bring value, that would come into a community and show people what and how to do, or even leverage and be their advocates and speak to them, that had no interest other than trying to do the right thing, to speak to legislators, to speak to other professionals, to help fundraise, to help coordinate activities. So if we get nothing else out of a conversation like tonight, people who are at home that want to do things, I mean, that would be my call to service, would be to volunteer, bring your talents and skills to the table and help communities like these that need assistance, that have been forgotten and are ignored.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I mean, we've got 50, 60 people here. They probably are, many of them are retirees. Many of them have got some skills and talents that I know could be brought to the issue. And so with that in mind, let's start with you, Brenda. How can we support you? How can the community at large in Sussex County, how can we support you? What can we do?
First of all, I would like to say you need to come and visit the center and visit the program and take a walk, not a ride in a car, but take a walk through the community, and then we can evaluate and we can talk about the things that need to be done together in this community. We can't stop progress, but we can fix up what belongs to us. But then how do we do that when you worked for $1.25 and your Social Security is not that great? It's a different in my Social Security and those that are 86 and 76. We still have strong seniors here that are living here. And what do? I know they can't do everything. So I pitch in and give back, because I go out and I talk about the needs in the community. It's not just always in this building. It's in the community, the people that are here. They don't know how to fix the roof. And a lot of these seniors are female women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things that's really come clear to me in our conversation tonight is the fact that all of these communities are very much multi-generational communities. And there are different needs at different levels of stages of our lives. And so there's plenty of opportunity, it sounds like to me, to help you make a difference, following your lead, of course. Evelyn, what are your thoughts on what the community can do to support you and Coverdale as a community?
First of all, you need to come out and introduce yourself. Just regular conversation. We got some great people in Coverdale. I got a whole list here. I keep up with my people. The education status, I know where they are. I'll find them. If I need them, I know where they are. I know who's left. The kids who bought houses. I know how many kids they've gotten. I keep up with them all. But you could come out and talk to them. I'm gonna tell you about the Coverdale people. They love projects. All you gotta do is organize it. Let me organize. I'll put them together. And they will work. I mean, they will work and get it done.
Yeah.
Bruce, you know that. They love projects. But they just need someone help them to get it together. And they'll work.
Great.
But we need some affordable housing.
Yes.
Continue to say that.
Huge issue. Yeah. Bruce, one of the things that you mentioned last night as we were talking was advocacy. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, I think advocacy works so many different ways. It's something that our agency does in advocating for the communities. It's something that the community residents do every day when they do things like what Brenda and Miss Evelyn are doing right now in voicing the needs of the community. But they, again, like I was saying, they need other people to help advocate. There are ties and connections in counties like Sussex County that we're not aware of. The connections are close. I was talking to a gentleman today who was in a forum with Senator Coons. You know, in Delaware, we're fortunate enough to rub elbows with our elected officials. And Don, the people that you know aren't the people that Evelyn know, are not the people that I know. Well, we have to work together to share the same message. And I think that's a wonderful role for some of the other people that are participating in this call and other agencies. I think Brenda said it about teamwork, you know, leveraging your resources, leveraging your connections and your friends.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all. This has been such a rich conversation, and I've learned a lot. I think everybody that's listening to this call has learned a lot. And I'm hoping that something positive can come out of this. Calvin, it looks like we've had a few questions that have come up over the course of the evening. Do you want to take over and get some of those questions on the table?
All right, sure. Hold on a moment. So one question. Someone wants to know how many people live in Coverdale?
You want to answer that?
How many people live in Coverdale?
Answer that question.
So it's roughly around 600.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that big.
It's one of the largest of the original strong communities.
Wow. Wow.
So another question, I think we've already answered this one though, is how can these communities, especially West Rehoboth, be protected from impinging gentrification, which is happening all over the country? But how can we protect these communities?
Well, I think we are a day short and $1 short for that. Moving forward, they're here, but they must realize when they moved into this community, what the community was like. And as strong Black African American people, you have to fall in line with us. We're not going to fall in line with you because we know what is going on. So I know what is going on. So I have to try to pull resources together, and we can't stop growth. That's one thing I want people to realize. We can't stop growth. I remember when Bruce said last night, First State can do so much, but they can't carry you all the way through because you have to get on that wagon and help yourself. And First State has done that in 13 communities. They have done their part. They've given you education. They have given you tools. They have even come in and tried to fix up what they can do. But then it goes back into your community that you have to get out and partnership. You can't sit still. You have to be a mover and a shaker. And those that have already come into this community, I would like to tell you that we work together. We work together in this community. So you can't stop growth. I don't care how you look at it. Um, yes, I realize that some property have been stolen from the blacks due to not being educated to know when the property was left to you, you didn't realize you had to pay inheritance taxes. But we can't stay there and wobble in dirt. We have to learn to work together. We got to dream it, we got to believe in it, and we're going to together to achieve it. So this is where I'm at. We have to do this together. And those that don't want to get on the bandwagon with West Rehoboth, and then we get this. Uh, the money is tight in Sussex County, but I don't know why it's so tight because every time I turn a corner, there's a new development going up. I
Yeah.
would think that maybe sometime the county needs to come and sit here with West Rehoboth and hear our thoughts because we are taxpayer, just like everybody else in West Rehoboth. Let's dribble some of that money from Wilmington and Newark. Let's bring it to the, the, the strong community people. And I know that it may not be what you want to hear, but we can't change life. Life is going to grow. And I always tell the children, this is where your parents said this is their home. But this is why we're educating you so that you can leave out of these walls and see what the other world is like. You may want to come back home and help your mother, but you may want to go to another state and start a new life for yourself. So I always tell them, dream your thought, do your thought, get your education. I know you want me to say, oh, well, uh, people of other color has come into your community and they building these great big homes. But why? Why has that happened? You know why it's happened. I know why it's happened. So we cannot just just say, oh, oh, oh. No, we have to learn to work together. That's the most important thing. We gotta work together.
Right. Thank you. Thanks.
Don, I'd just like
Yes.
to say it's about education. I can remember again when I started working in West Rehoboth, and this was before any water extension or sewer project was being mentioned. There were people speculating that were buying lifetime rights from residents in West Rehoboth in 1994. The sewer didn't go in until 1999 or 2000,
Mhm.
and they were already gambling on what was going to happen. They weren't doing it for themselves; they were doing it for their children. And we have to get ahead of that curve in other communities because people will start speculating and buying lifetime rights in Pinetown and parts of Milton and the rest of the county.
Right. Thanks.
I would like to say that they do stop by homes and they say, "Oh, we'll buy your land for 2,000." I mean, they have come to me and asked me about, my land, and quite natural, I have mouth trouble. So I said, if you have $1 million for me and $1 million for my sister, then we'll be more than glad to give you our land. So then they keep riding their bicycle or they keep going. See,
Yeah.
because my father and my mother for $1.25 an hour, that means a lot to me. I helped build our first home that we lived in with no running water, with pigs and hogs, and
Right.
got up and fed the hogs before I even went to school. So when you have that on your heart and mind, you know that is good land. The land is worth something. It's rich me in my heart. And it's
Sure.
me on my
You're cutting out, Brenda, for some reason. I'm not sure why, but you're cutting out. Let's before we close out, we're just about out of time. Calvin, time for one more question.
Yes, hold on a moment. Oh, well, someone mentioned that they think Habitat for Humanity has a home repair program now. Has anyone heard about this?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Habitat has a minor home repair program, as does Milford Housing has emergency home repair program, and then Sussex County Community Development has a more comprehensive housing rehab program. And I know that Brenda and Miss Evelyn are aware of that. Yeah.
Okay. Don, can I just ask one more question? I see a question here that I overlooked.
Sure.
So how can we help Black community members to be a part of the growth too? The diagram that Mr. Wright shared early moved to many stages of community development and into thriving. What would it take to promote that trajectory? What stands in the way of getting the policymakers to listen?
It's a great question, Bruce. I'm going to throw that to you. How's that?
The good old boys.
The good old boys. We heard
that.
Brenda was not muted for that. There are
Nor should we be.
definitely local community systems that need to be navigated and barriers that need to be torn down. And Brenda just probably nailed one of them for sure. I think it's about building capacity. It's about creating mutual understanding. It's about creating opportunities. We have to be able to engage community residents in the processes that make decisions in public forums. We've all seen in recent times the power of social media through George Floyd and many other racial incidents. But basically, I think we just have to expose the things that are going on, the unjust practices that create barriers for these communities of color, and more importantly, of people of poverty. I spent a lot of time listening to various conversations about poverty, and there's no need for there to be such an equity gap in a country like America. And we just have to work toward, bridging that and creating a middle class.
Right. Well, when you're ready to go to the county council or whatever, you let us know, and we could support you on that. Before I turn it over to Charlotte for some final words, I'm going to quote Alice Brumley from the Delaware State Police Troop 5. She says, SDARJ, you have assembled the pioneering superheroes of our communities. And I totally agree with that. I just want to thank you all so much for being part of this very rich conversation. Charlotte, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sorry, I was on mute for a moment.
There you go.
But I want to second what Don has said. We couldn't have had better advocates tonight than Evelyn and Brenda and Bruce to introduce us and to expose us to our underserved communities and what needs to happen. And maybe there's some hope on the road. There were two things that came up from each of you. I think that you, Evelyn, asked about what about affordable housing? And I ask all of you out there who live in communities that are faced with the prospect of affordable housing being built next door, and you collectively scream, "NAMBI, not in my backyard." Understand, please, the need for affordable housing and support any effort for that affordable housing to be built. Brenda, you talked about the work of Beau Biden, and it brought tears to my eyes because I think Beau Biden was a great man. But it is hopeful that in January of this year, one of the first executive orders the President of the United States, Joe Biden, did was an executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. And he has mandated that every agency that impacts on the life of the people in those communities review their policies and make sure that equity is built in so that the underserved communities can get their fair share of those opportunities. We all trust Mr. Biden, but he could use our support by reaching out to our national representatives and making sure that this remains a real executive order. But I want to thank you. I learned so much from the panelists tonight, and I hope you'll come back and join us. Actually, it was so much fun meeting the three of you and so helpful. And we will have more community leaders on August 2nd when we present our second part of a town hall meeting on reimagining police. And we have policing. And we have invited members of other communities, and they also may include the three communities here, to talk about our relationship with the police, so that, or with the police, law enforcement in our area. So please tune into that, and tune in on July 20th when we will be setting the stage for what we mean by reimagining policing, which is all part of the issues in these developments. But again, on behalf of the Alliance, thank you so much. You have given wonderful, wonderful information to all of us, including the more than 60 people who were tuned in listening to you. So thank you very much, all of you. Don, back to you.
All right. Thanks, Charlotte. Just a few kind of information pieces. We will be sending out to you right after this a brief survey, a survey evaluation of tonight's program. We'd really love it if you would fill it out and send it back to us. Love for you to consider, if you haven't already, become a member of the Alliance by going to our website at the membership tab and joining us. And then the final thing that I'd like to say is we've heard so much great information tonight. What is just one action that you think you could take that would support any number of these underserved communities in Sussex County? We know you have the expertise. We know you have the background. What's just one thing that you think you can do? I'm going to put in to the chat right now, based on their permission. I'm going to put in the oops, I'm not. We will send you out the email addresses of the panelists for tonight so that you can reach out to them directly. Go visit Brenda. Go visit Evelyn in Coverdale. go see all of the great programs that First State Community Action has to offer and find out how you can help. With that, I'm going to say thank you very much.
Well,
One more time, thank you to the panelists.
John, can we